This is going to cost families, people that can't afford it, thousands of dollars more a year just to drive to work.
They say $3,000 to drive in Austin, $2,000 to drive outside the city. Now they're saying over $5,000 per Texan. And again, this is happening all over the country. We're just focusing on Texas as a microcosm.
Yep.
If a Texan's paying 24 cents a gallon in state tax right now, their own numbers say it'll be the equivalent of $3 a gallon in tax. That's their numbers.
If you happen to go 2 miles over the speed limit, you don't have to wonder if you're going to get lucky or not if there's a police officer around. You're going to get a photograph of your license in the mail and a demand that you pay. And now we've got Karen Sunleitner, who is the toll road queen. We need to remove her in the Democratic primary in Travis County. She needs to go. And we've got Mike Cruzy in Williamson County.
By the way, she's always been a monster.
The only problem is she's sending out direct mail pieces with all the money she's gotten from all the special interest tollers that says that she's been fighting for free roads.
Big private interests go, look, we can go buy the politicians, we can take over, and we can charge them more for their water, their power, and their roads, just like Enron out in California, and they're doing it to us right now.
He's actually diverting education funds to pay for double tax freeway tolls. And they call it the Texas Mobility Fund.
Now, let's be specific. We, the taxpayers, pay for the handover to these people. I mean, you pay to get raped. Yeah, you never hear about it. It starts 5 years before, and then boom, it happens. And the legislatures will be paid off to sign all their authority over to a private board that the wives of the toll companies sit on.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, literally, folks, we could do 5 hours just on the conflict of interest is too kind a word. In this hour, Jack Blood joins us to talk about a host of issues, but predominantly about a major new toll road story and NAFTA highway story that Jack, for several weeks, 3 weeks, has been talking to someone working inside the state at very high levels.
It's the good news is that the Trans-Texas Corridor is ahead of schedule and under budget. But why is it under budget and ahead of schedule? And we're starting to get these leaks of information. Well, we're asked to invest billions of dollars into this massive control grid, and what I'm about to tell you is that control grid is already crumbling beneath our very feet. But the first story he told me was how there were a lot of illegal immigrants working on the Trans-Texas Corridor, and there were a number of accidents, where they were dying.
There have been 2 of those in the last 2 weeks.
They are just peppered throughout the entire construction of the Trans-Texas Corridor. So then the next thing he comes and tells me is that they're building a military superhighway, Alex. This is something, again, that we're never hearing about. A military giant super 10-lane highway to run parallel with the Trans-Texas Corridor, which will run from San Antonio to Dallas.
This is internationalism. Understand, to take over a country, you take over its roads. They're just taking the roads, handing it over to international bodies, international corporations, and then they're going to have this 10-mile buffer zone on each side. This is the takeover. This is America going into the World Union.
2 weeks ago, I received a call from my source, and he was panicked. Number one, the crushed limestone used to make the concrete of which the toll roads are built with, is very weak, and it's led to a total failure of most of the structures and superstructures currently standing as our future Trans-Texas Corridor. The translation is these roads will fall apart long before they're paid for. The second thing is that the charts done by my source, which you're looking at right now, and other inspectors are showing that the standing infrastructure is failing, meaning that the crappy, cheap concrete is already decaying from excessive moisture. You look at my chart, it's nosediving. Can you imagine what this is going to look like in 3 or 4 years? And falsifying records, doing inadequate tests.
Well, I want to...
If you go through a number of my documents here, you'll see failed. Everything fails. Reported to supervisor, told me to shut up.
These are supposed to be designed to last 50 to 75 years. Before the roads even open, they're failing.
Reminded of Hitler. When Hitler was first brought to power in Germany, the first thing he did was start to build these giant, massive, super wide highways and improve the infrastructure because he knew he had to move his military machinery and he was about to go to war on the front lines. It reminds me of the Big Dig. Now, of course, we know George Shultz's company, Bechtel, who is getting all the military contracts, no-bid contracts even for Katrina, very quietly. Not like Halliburton, very loudly, very quietly. George Shultz and Bechtel get just as many, if not more, contracts than Halliburton. And we remember the Big Dig. You know, I lived up in the Northeast. I've driven through the Big Dig. And it was just a massive mess, just like what we're going to see now with the Trans-Texas Corridor. A mess that was falling apart before they can finish it, literally putting holes in the dike. This goes underneath water. So it's leaking. They went over budget by something like 500%. It cost them an extra $12 billion, and they're still trying to patch it up and fix it. It's a giant piece of crap.
Don't have a heart attack, Jack. This isn't the show for that. We don't get excited here.
Central Texans, do you like to throw money away? Then you'll love Austin's double tax tolls. More tolls on roads we've already paid for are coming to Austin. Unless we speak out now, the revote for Phase 2 tolls is coming. Why are tricky politicians tolling tax-funded roads like Highway 71, 183, 290, and Loop 360? After they steal our tax dollars for toll roads, they claim we don't have any money. The toll lobby gives fat contributions to our elected officials. They profit big off double tax tolls. Our families shouldn't pay more so special interests can profit. Texas Comptroller investigative report reveals double taxation without accountability. Which local elected officials voted for double tax tolls in 2005? Rep. Mike Crucy, Rep. Mark Strama, Councilman Brewster McCracken, Commissioner Gerald Doherty, Judge Sam Bisco, Mayor Will Wynn, Rep. Donna Dukes, Senator Dan Gaddis, and others. Urgent. The revote is coming soon. Tell our elected officials to vote no this time. Send a no automatic message to all 23 Campo board members with the click of one button at austintollparty.com.
I thought I knew how government operated. I've been in local government for 30 years. I thought I understood the Constitution. I thought I understood the Bill of Rights. I thought I knew what our freedoms and liberties were. And then I ran across this project called the Trans-Texas Corridor, and it first appeared to be a road project. It turned out it was nothing to do with transportation. It has to do with generating revenue with no public input, with no oversight. It is now the official plan. And it's highways, it's toll roads, it's railroad, it's utilities, and it is a government grant of an absolute monopoly.
David Stahl joins me in studio.
Well, when they passed the Trans-Texas Corridor, it was a 388-page document, and we have yet to find a single legislator other than the one who authored it and proposed it and signed on to it who've read it.
Well, it's the same as the Patriot Act. I mean, they weren't even allowed to read that. It was released 1 hour before passage. This isn't just about toll roads. It isn't just about transponders. It's about tracking, taxation, loss of sovereignty, a whole host of issues. We talked about how the government has gone criminal. It's gone rogue. So many elements of it are just, you were saying, just do whatever they want now.
The Department of Transportation, they get to estimate what their revenues are. They say, well, we don't know what the revenues are going to be, and here's our estimate. And they chronically underestimate it to the tune of about $800 million a year. And when that money comes in, it's off the budget.
The comprehensive annual financial report's the real set of books for cities and governments?
Well, they are a set of books for the local government.
And that's the investments of that local government.
That's right.
You look like the Cheshire Cat when I bring that.
Now, scheduled coming up in about 15 minutes, we're going to have Walter Burien on to talk about the biggest game in town, one of the biggest scams in the world, not just in this country. And frankly, you're not going to hear this anywhere else. We're going to be talking about the comprehensive annual financial reports. I actually have the comprehensive annual financial report from 1999, and this is from the Comptroller's office, Carol Keaton Rhinelander, Texas Comptroller of Public Accounts. And this is a scaled-down comprehensive financial report. It's only 295 pages long. Phone book size, though, compared to what it was in 1998. And you've seen us on the air with the 1998 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. I tore apart the file room at my office today, dug through 20 boxes and couldn't find it, but in later shows we will have that date free of charge and get 99, 98, 97, 96, going back 20-plus years, free of charge. They will give those to you. But never in the media, never in the press will you hear about the comprehensive annual financial report. 99's, 2000 isn't out yet. Comes out a few months after the fiscal year ends, which is back in October, but it's still not out yet. They have the Capitol and the nice, This comprehensive annual financial report is not as lavish as the previous comprehensive financial reports, and it does not give all of the numbers. And that is because of the pressure of myself and hundreds of other Americans in the media, in the alternative press, Access TV, syndicated talk radio that is not yet controlled in many cases, reporting on this. You're saying, Alex, you're talking about a comprehensive annual financial report. I'm about to change the channel. Boring taxes. We know government's corrupt. We know they're pulling all kinds of scams on us. What are you talking about? Why should we care about this? Because it's the biggest scam in town, folks. This is why your police are now wearing black ski masks. This is why they're getting armored personnel carriers. This is why cameras are going up. This is why they've put up microphones all over Austin, Texas, to little or no fanfare. This is why we're being wired for sound. This is why our driver's license have a digital thumbprint on them. This is why we're losing national sovereignty. Right there in their own report, ladies and gentlemen. Right there in their own report for the whole world to see. Every major media outlet gets a copy of this. They print up hundreds of thousands of them for the state of Texas. You pay for it. It goes out to all the major bond houses, all the major mutual funds, all the major companies like Xerox and Ford and you name it, Monsanto's. They all get it. This is the stuff that city managers and county managers and the financial directors talk about. This is the stuff they live, the stuff they breathe. They had $435 billion in Texas in surplus. And by surplus,
our cat when I bring that up. There are trillions missing from the Pentagon, and Rumsfeld gets asked about it. He just goes, I don't know, I'm not going to answer your question. Just trillions missing at the local level. Just 5 years ago, it wasn't. Why does it seem like there's a mad pell-mell, like the ship sinking, like cockroaches when you spray Raid on them, start fornicating? I mean, why is government just going wild right now? Just never. Bush has spent more money and put us in more debt than all presidents before him combined.
Well, I think that if you were to look at the technical definition of fascism, when you intermix corporate operations with government, that's what you have.
Most Americans want government to control our borders, especially since 9/11. But some politicians want to do away with borders entirely, and they have a plan for doing it. It's called the Free Trade Area of the Americas, a roadmap for economic and political fusion of our hemisphere. If approved, Americans will lose control of their own future. Go to stoptheftaa.org, then tell Congress to say no to the FTAA.
At the state capitol, it was the state's transportation agency on the hot seat today, getting plenty of questions from state senators and angry taxpayers over toll roads and Governor Perry's Trans-Texas Corridor project. It would build toll roads, railways, and utility lines from the Oklahoma border down to Mexico. CBS 42's Keith Elkins joins us live from the Capitol. So, Keith, is the meeting over now?
Yes, it is, Ron. Time simply ran out, and not everybody that traveled here to Austin today got a chance to have their say. They're not happy about that tonight, but they're also not happy about having toll roads sprouting up all over Texas. They came packing signs, wearing boots, and demanding to be heard.
Coming back to the table, won't you give her 2 more minutes?
Be quiet. If you would be quiet, then we would be able to go on.
More than 1,000 angry Texans saying no to Texas toll roads and Governor Perry's Trans-Texas Corridor transportation plan.
Will the deception of TxDOT about toll roads override the truth and knowledge of the public?
It's not just farmers and ranchers who are frustrated with the state's transportation agency.
We don't know even the basics. We truly are in the dark, and we're the transportation committee. And that's, I guess, our frustration, if not our embarrassment.
It took 18 months and nearly 200 emails to force TxDOT to tell anyone exactly what they're up to. And saying no to elected officials who control your budget has never been popular in Texas.
We catch a lot of flack, and a lot of it we deserve. But let me tell you, if I don't leave you with anything else, I must impress this upon you. The population growth and density this state faces is unlike anything it's ever faced in its history.
Controversial roads proposed for future congestion, but some say it's just a money grab by the state.
It would have cost me $30 on this Trans-Corridor toll road, one way from Arlington down here to speak to you fine gentlemen and Ms. Shapiro. I'm going to leave it right here for Ms.
No, please don't
Thank
do
you.
that.
Lawmakers are considering making several legislative changes to give them more oversight to the contracting process, but they said the process actually starts today when they told TxDOT officials they need to do a better job communicating exactly what they're up to with the legislature. We're live at the state capitol. Keith Elkins, CBS 42 News.
Look, the deal is that most people don't know that every HOV lane in Houston is going to be a toll road. Down the middle of 288 is going to be a toll road. So wherever any new highway is built, it'll be a toll road. And people will pay twice. And that's just not right. So last session I filed a bill to put a moratorium on tolls in the Trans-Texas Corridor, which, clearly is a boondoggle. So we want highways and we want rail transportation, we want all of that. But what we don't want is people's land taken unfairly. What we don't want is people having to have an easy pass to get to work. So that's why I filed House Bill 998 to put a moratorium on all new toll roads in Texas until we resolve this issue, because quite frankly, we all want mobility, but we don't want mobility in terms of having people who can't afford to pay to get on a toll lane, and we don't want luxury lanes. What we have is the creation of those folks who can pay will get uncongested pathways with their cars, and those who can't will be sitting in traffic. And so, clearly we'll be talking about this more, but there's a movement all over the state. We recognized it 2 years ago, and this needs to be stopped. And whenever you hear something called a managed lane, that means a toll road. So we'll talk more about this.
This is Lou Dobbs Tonight. News, debate, and opinion for Friday, March 2nd. Sitting in for Lou Dobbs, Kitty Pilgrim.
Good evening, everyone. So, outrage over a massive new transportation project in Texas, a project that could be the first step in a superhighway from Mexico to Canada. And opponents of a proposed superhighway from the Mexican border through Texas today held a major protest. Now, the highway would speed trucks from Mexico into the heart of this country. Critics say it's a threat to our national security. It's part of a plan for a North American integration being carried out by government and corporate elites without congressional or voter approval. And as Lisa Sylvester reports, Texans aren't giving up without a fight.
Not a sight you see every day. Farm tractors rolling down the streets of Austin to the Texas Capitol. A diverse coalition marched opposing the Trans-Texas Corridor.
They're selling out our infrastructure, and it's really about a part of the NAFTA superhighway, creating Mexico, the United States, and Canada. It's the first piece.
The proposed Trans-Texas Corridor would be a patchwork of superhighways and railroads, stretching 4,000 miles from the border of Mexico, cutting through Texas to Oklahoma.
We'll lose control of public infrastructure. We will continue a trend of losing transparency and accountability in government. I think it will set a tone that we'll all come to regret.
The Texas Transportation Department says the corridor will improve mobility and safety, create jobs for Texans, and inject billions of dollars into the state's economy. But at a hearing, there were loud complaints from residents. State lawmakers looking at other toll projects like the Chicago Skyway and the Holland Tunnel worry that their tolls would increase to a staggering level based on contract formulas.
You're looking in this situation, if you had a 1927 toll at 1, you get to $185. I think many of us at this table would not be elected if we let that happen.
Lawmakers also expressed concern over another road project. A lease has been signed that would make Texas Highway 121 a toll road. A private Spanish company won the bid to build and collect the tolls for the next 50 years. These deals with private companies are being negotiated largely in secret, and many state lawmakers are worried taxpayers are being sold down the road.
In 2003, the state Senate gave the Texas Transportation Commission the authority to enter into these agreements with private contractors. Now some state lawmakers believe they gave up too much authority. One bill proposed calls for a 2-year moratorium on these new toll roads. Kitty?
Thanks very much, Lisa Sylvester. And that brings us to the subject of tonight's poll. Should foreign companies be allowed to control vital transportation infrastructure in this country? Yes or no? Cast your vote at LouDobbs.com. We'll bring you the results later in the broadcast. Even today, highways are the primary way drugs are smuggled into this country from Mexico. The State Department's International Narcotics Report says legitimate commercial traffic provides ample opportunity for smugglers to move drugs across our border. The results of tonight's poll, 99% of you think foreign companies should not be allowed to control vital transportation infrastructure in this country.
The state's portion of the problem solved by borrowing against an indexed, just the indexed component of a gas tax.
Well, that is news. I'll tell you what, let's have a resource.
It's staggering. I agree with you, by the way. It's incredible information that we were rather surprised to figure it out.
I understand when a county judge says, I want to keep the cost of this toll down for my citizens. I don't want a Robin Hood for highways, although we all build highways on using Robin Hood, interestingly. I understand it when that county judge says that. I understand it when a board member of Hector or NTTA says, well, our goal is to keep the cost of the driver down as much as possible for the consumer. But that's not our strategy. Our strategy is to let the consumer, the product, decide that, whether it's worth $1 or 10 cents or $2 a mile or whatever it is.
Second, let me say, again, going back to Discos and the fool that put that document together.
Wait a minute. I just want to ask you, let me ask you this, Mr. Williamson, or Commissioner, because you do this frequently where you talk about people that way. When you're a governor's appointee, are you not a public servant any longer?
Yes, ma'am.
Then do you think it's appropriate to sit up there and talk about people the way you do?
I think it's appropriate to point out that people who make put together foolish documents.
You can talk about the document being foolish, but I don't think you should say the person's a fool. I know that the governor wants to run on transparency, and you're talking about these agreements too. But we don't ever get to see these agreements.
Well, they're on our website.
But some of these agreements that you've had, we don't know what the negotiations and things are. I know that when we were talking about 183 and that the CDA was coming in or possibly doing 183 on the east side in North Texas, the city couldn't talk to anybody. They couldn't be involved in those negotiations at all. They weren't supposed to know what was happening so that they could say, maybe we'd take that.
Proposals. And if someone has misled you into thinking this was part of an agreement negotiated, they just have misled you, Ms. Harper Brown.
They have under the CDA process, then these entities, these vendors can come forward and discuss these opportunities on building these private and
under any construction process allowed by law, whether it's CDA, design build, design blind bid, doesn't matter. Anything we build, vendors up until the time we issue a request for proposal can talk to your city, the RTC, our district engineer, our staff in Austin, or commissioner.
Well, that would be interesting because as I understand it, the vendors were told that they could not talk to the city of Irving.
Well, I can only speak for myself. And I can only tell you that I never said that. And I mean, that's nuts.
So then that takes me then, I guess, to the issue of the eliminating the Washington, once again, I guess, Washington-Austin. And the way you're saying that is that you haven't tried to prevent certain vendors or lobbyists or people from doing business in the state, and haven't said that you were going to try to put people out of business because they didn't agree with you or with TxDOT, and you haven't said that TxDOT would never do any more business with them, and you have said that you haven't tried to penalize any of the cities or make phone calls. Have anybody at TxDOT that you know of made phone calls to try to eliminate the opportunity for these vendors to work in the state? And try to take business away from them that you know of?
Why do I smell a trap?
It's not. It's just a question. You've said you're not going to try to interfere in that kind of thing. You don't do that.
Well, we sort of segued from 183 in Irving, Texas to a broader series of questions, and I might just defer on my answer because I sense that you're headed in a direction that I really would not like to be on record discussing. I will say this.
First of all, I think we've created a monster at TxDOT. And I don't think it's TxDOT's fault. I think it's the legislature's fault. I think we've starved them for cash, the gasoline tax over the years, and not indexing it to inflation. I think we've come up with all these other ideas, toll roads, concession agreements, privatization. And I have to tell you, I think we're headed in the totally wrong direction. I think what the state's giving up with the concession agreements and with privatization, we're giving up the cream. I'm not saying shouldn't be a tool in the tool bag, but I think what's going to happen is we're going to wake up in this state and we're going to have runaway tolls because the private companies are going to maximize every loophole in that contract to raise those tolls as high as they can because that's their profits. And I'm not sure anybody's watching all this. And like I said, I don't blame TxDOT. We're all in this together. And I hope what you two are going to bring to the process is a fresh look at all this. And I want to hear your comments on it because I'm telling you, we used to be the envy of the country because we paid cash for all our projects.
A special televised meeting of the New York-based Council on Foreign Relations provides a window to the real story. The speaker, Vice President Dick Cheney, takes a question from David Rockefeller.
Vice President, I just enjoyed so much your whole speech, but I was particularly pleased that you gave such a strong endorsement for the free trade agreement for all the Americas, subject that has been of great concern to me for many years, and particularly recently, and I think it's absolutely essential for the strength of our economy.
Rockefeller's role in the drive for an FTAA was a lot more central than he portrays. Rockefeller cultivated Latin American leaders who could be counted on to support such a proposal. Both the 1994 Miami Summit and the FTAA proposal were conceived and nurtured by a Rockefeller-created network. Prominent among the organizations sponsoring the Miami event were the Council of the Americas, founder and honorary chairman David Rockefeller, the Americas Society, chairman David Rockefeller, the Forum of the Americas, founder David Rockefeller, the Institute for International Economics, financial backer and board member David Rockefeller, the Trilateral Commission, founder and honorary chairman David Rockefeller. Rockefeller's influence also extends to the current administration. He was chairman emeritus of the CFR when Vice President Dick Cheney once served as a director, a relationship that Cheney concealed during his congressional career.
It's good to be back at the Council on Foreign Relations. As Pete mentioned, I've been a member for a long time and was actually a director for some period of time. I never mentioned that when I was campaigning for re-election back home in Wyoming.